Okay, guys, so here we go with chapter 10. When I got home from Howard's house, I told Gus and Bertha about Howard's plan to catch Wishbone. We're going to build a great big trap, I said, stretching my arms out to show how big, with some chicken wire from his daddy's workshop. Gus's eyebrows shot up. A trap, huh? I nodded. Well, kind of. More like one of those big dog crates. We're going to put it out at the edge of the woods behind the garden. And then we're going to stick some branches and leaves and stuff in the chicken wire so it blends in with the forest. I went on to explain how we were going to put something good inside to eat the crate. That way when Wishbone went in to eat it, we would close the door. Well, he sure does like my meatloaf, said Bertha, and hot dogs, and bologna. So she tossed a couple pieces of fish stick that were left over from supper onto the floor for the two cats and said, now, Charlie, I don't want to rain on your parade, but what if that dog isn't exactly friendly to people? What if he bites? Or what if he has some kind of dog disease? He won't bite. He likes me, I said, ignoring that last question about the dog disease. Gus, Bertha said, why don't you tell Charlie about that dog you had when you were a kid? But then she went on and told me all about Gus's dog named Skeeter, who used to catch rabbits and bring them home for Gus and his sisters to play with. And one time he climbed into the back of a produce truck and ended up all the way down in Hendersonville. And he showed up on the front porch the next day full of porcupine quills. Right, Gus? Poor Lord only knows what happened to him when he got ran off. So Gus nodded. And then one time he dug up a hornet's nest. That dog must have had 9 lives. He got stung all over. He must be like a cat. Must have, said Gus. And go ahead and tell her about how he waited for you outside school every day. Bertha scooped up one of the cats into her lap. Oh, and tell her about how he used to steal the chicken livers right out of the frying pan when your mama was cooking them. Bertha, we're going to bore this poor child to death. Come on, he said, giving me a wink. Right, Butterbean? Gus had started getting into the habit of calling me Butterbean sometimes. It made me feel like a baby. But I didn't say anything. Then Bertha told us about some woman in the grocery store who fainted in the cereal aisle. But I wasn't really listening to the story because I was thinking about Wishbone. I pictured him waiting at school for me every day. Then maybe he'd run alongside the school bus like he'd done that day when I saw him fighting. Maybe he'd run and follow me all the way home. Maybe the bus driver would let him on the bus because he's so smart and with such a cute dog, and maybe he would do all kinds of tricks for the kids. He could sleep in my bed every night, and I'd sing that song from church, Good Old Noah, to him. Maybe he'd let me put on Jackie's Rally High School t-shirt and paint his toenails red. Maybe I could teach him to go up to the end of the driveway on Sunday mornings and get the newspaper and bring it in before we left for church. He could chase rabbits out of the garden for Gus and sit out on the porch with us every night, keeping us company. I still had a little bit of a nagging feeling when I thought about my mom having a hissy fit when I would bring him back to rally with me, but I just pushed that thought out of my mind. By the time Bertha went inside to get a box of graham crackers for us, I was just so in love with Wishbone I could hardly stand it. I sure hoped Howard's plan was going to work. Let's go set up the sprinkler in the garden, said Gus to me while he tugged on his dirty baseball cap. So I followed him outside, 3 cats sauntering along beside us. I helped him untangle the hose and drag it out to the garden. And while he attached the sprinkler to it, I walked up and down the tidy rows of pole beans and squash and tomato plants. They were growing bigger every day. The soft dirt felt warm underneath my bare feet. And suddenly a ladybug landed on my arm. I put my finger next to it and I let it climb on. And then I held up my finger and whispered, Ladybug, ladybug, fly away home. And as I watched that little ladybug fly off into the sky, I made my wish. My sister Jackie called again that night. She told me that she put those blue streaks in her hair, and now everybody at school was copying her. I swear, Charlie, everybody in Rally's just got blue streaks in their hair now like mine. Then she told me how she met some boy who played the guitar in a band and had his nose pierced. His name was Cockroach. And her sort of kind of boyfriend, Arlo, didn't like him much. Cockroach, I said. I mean, what else can you say when somebody tells you they got a name like that? But she just kept talking over me, saying how she couldn't wait to graduate and get out of high school, and that her and some girl named Shayla might move into Fort Lauderdale in an apartment because Shayla's uncle could get them jobs in his Mexican restaurant. And if that didn't happen, then she was maybe going to go to school to be a dental assistant. She sure had a lot of plans, and not one of them seemed like they included me. Are you going to come visit me sometime? I asked, feeling like I sounded like a baby. Of course I am, Charlie, as soon as I get time. Well, I guess she had lots of time for Cockroach and Arlo and Shayla and Carol Lee that she lived with, but she didn't seem to have much time for me. Out on the porch that night, Bertha told Gus about her day, while I sent my thoughts zipping through the trees to wherever Wishbone was. I tried to channel it. I wanted him to know he didn't have to be a stray like me. I wanted him to be mine. If I could think real hard, maybe he would appear. Then my mind went off wandering over to the Odoms. I wondered what they were doing right at that very minute. I bet they were all piled on pillows on the floor eating popcorn and playing card games. And I bet Mrs. Odom was taping up their school papers on the wall, telling them how proud she was of them. And I bet she'd probably have to say, Rutabaga, for Cotton to stop drawing on the walls with those markers of his. Gus interrupted my thoughts when he stood up and stretched and said, time to turn in for the night. I hated the thought of another day at school. That awful bus with the gum in the seats and the kids snickering when I walked by. Mrs. Willoughby was frowning at me. Tossing my marked up papers into my desk with a sigh. That was the rest of my day. I didn't like school much. The cafeteria, with the kids flinging peas at each other, just ignoring me. I guess it was better than them flinging the peas at me. There were only a few more weeks of school left, but it felt like 100 years to me. There was no doubt about it. I needed that dog. I needed Wishbone more than ever. All right. So today, I'm going to let you pass by without having to do a write-up on the story. And I want you to just think about the things that are happening and going on around Charlie, how she is adjusting to her life in Colby, how she feels towards the people around her. I want you to think about, and if you want, you could make a small graphic organizer. You could put Charlie in the middle and put arrows coming out of the circle. And I want you to connect her maybe to Gus, to Bertha, to Howard, maybe to school, to Audrey. I want you to connect her to characters in the story and tell me what her feelings are towards them and why you think she feels that way. Right? We all know she's coming from a very difficult position, having to switch homes and adjust to a new home, a new school, whole new environment. It's a big change for her. So how is she dealing with it? What feelings and emotions are going on inside her that she can connect to the other characters? Let me know how that works out. Send me pictures, guys. Okay, see you soon.